FPL Game Week 7 is fast approaching. Let's have a look at the best players to buy for the week and make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. So now let's have a look at the defenders that are predicted to get the most points in FPL Game Week 7. Those are Califury in at first, Gabriel in at second. Surprisingly, Patrick Dorgu is third for predicted points for Game Week 7 for defenders. Timber in at fourth, Saliba, Matty Cash after that. After that, it goes to Senesi, Matthijs de Ligt, Virgil van Dijk, Tarkowski, Konza and Lecroix to complete the top 12. But there are two defenders that I want to talk about in particular, and those are the Arsenal boys, Gabriel and Califury. So far this season, Califury has a higher XG than Gabriel with a 0.33, nearly double Gabriel's, who's at 0.15, or more than double, should I say. Expected assists, again, Califury is higher. Defcon, Gabriel comes out on top, even though Gabriel's not really a Defcon monster like we say with other players, like for example at Senesi. Ownership, Califury is much lower, but more interestingly, Gabriel only has 2 more points than Califury, and I feel like Califury is someone within the FPL community who is severely underrated, just because we weren't sure on his minutes at the start of the season. Califury started every single game in the Premier League. Of course, there are certain games that he's got the early sub, which is obviously a bit of a concern, but going into Game Week 7, even though his expected minutes are 75, he's still predicted to get the most points, which just shows how good of an asset Califury could be, and someone that within the FPL community, we like, let's say, the assurance of, and like, let's say, the 90-minute men, which we expect Gabriel to be. But Califury, even though in his limited minutes, even though he's still playing more than 60, has shown that he can pretty much match Gabriel's total, because we know Califury going forward offers a lot more in that left back role. We know he can invert, go down the outside. We know he has a great strike on him. We even saw it last year in parts before like all the injuries kind of happened. So Califury could actually be a severely underrated FPL asset. I'm not saying I'm going to bring him in, but I'm just saying I am keeping a close eye on his minutes, because his minutes are better than I thought. Are there any other defenders that I'll be looking to bring in for this week? I'll be honest, I feel like this week is all about Arsenal. You can see it. The top 5 expected points for this week for defenders, 4 of them are Arsenal defenders. Like, we're expecting a clean sheet against West Ham, and we're expecting goal contributions from the Arsenal guys. Now, let's take a look at the midfielders. The midfielders that are predicted to get the most points in FPL Game Week 7 are Bruno Fernandes at first, Saka in at second, Cunha completing the top 3, with Semenyo, Mo Salah, Brian Mbeumo completing the top 6, followed by Anthony Gordon, Declan Rice, Morgan Rogers, Ndiaye, Odegaard and Jorginho Rota from Brighton. But more importantly, there are 2 midfielders that stand out, and those are Sarr and Enza, both getting goals this weekend. And I want to start by talking about Sarr. Sarr's underlying numbers are very, very strong so far this season. An XG was 0.72. It is ridiculous. He's obviously missed 2 games with injury, but the 4 games that he has played, he's returned in 3 of them. Again, on the weekend against Liverpool, like he always does against Liverpool, he got himself a goal. But more importantly, I feel like going into the season, we were worried about Crystal Palace assets with the departure of Eze. I feel like Yeremy Pino's done a good job in terms of replacing some of Eze's creative, let's say, hole that he left in that side. And it almost feels like Sarr is now becoming like the main talisman for that Crystal Palace attack, because Mateta hasn't really, let's say, hit form to the level that we know he can reach. Obviously, he's got 2 goals so far this season, and Ketia finally came off the bench and scored. But more importantly, it seems like Sarr's, like, everything, a lot's going through Sarr right now. And obviously, we know the impact that Sarr can have. We know his minutes are good in terms of he's mostly going to get 90 minutes when he's fully fit. So that is something that I think we have to keep an eye on. And more importantly, is Crystal Palace's fixtures coming up. Crystal Palace have Everton in Game Week 7. That's a decent fixture from an attacking point of view. Game Week 8 and Game Week 9, they're Bournemouth and Arsenal, 2 defences that are in the top 3 for expected goals conceded. But after that, they go on a very good run. Brentford at home, Brighton away, Wolves away, Manchester United at home, Burnley away and Fulham away in Game Week 15. So that spell there, you're going to want Crystal Palace assets, and you're probably going to want Sarr for that run. So that's just something that you want to keep an eye on going forward. The other midfielder that I wanted to talk about was Enzo Fernandez. Again, he's a very, very, let's say, he comes in at a very good price point. But more importantly, Enzo Fernandez has obviously got himself a couple goals, couple assists so far this season. And he's playing in a more advanced role with Cole Palmer out. Enzo Fernandez is playing in the 10. But even when Cole Palmer's fully fit, this is why I say in possession shape is so important to look at. Because Enzo Fernandez, when Cole Palmer still plays in the 10, Enzo Fernandez almost joins in. Enzo Fernandez becomes another 10 because Chelsea often play like a 3-2-5 in possession. So that's when you'll see Enzo Fernandez push forward. And more importantly, Enzo Fernandez did take the penalty when Cole Palmer was obviously out for one of the games. But more importantly as well, Chelsea's fixtures coming up are very, very good. Game week 7, they have Liverpool at home. Very tough fixture. But after that, Nottingham Forest away, Sunderland at home, Tottenham away, Wolves at home, Burnley away, Arsenal at home, Leeds away, Bournemouth away, Everton away. Everton at home, sorry. That is a very, very nice run where you probably do want to own Chelsea assets for. And considering a lot of people have Haaland, considering a lot of people might double up with Haaland and Salah going forward, these cheaper midfield enablers are going to be very, very key. And Enzo Fernandez could be a brilliant price point getting into that Chelsea, let's say, attack. So that is something that we have to keep an eye on. Now, let's have a look at the attack because the predicted points are very, very interesting. Okay, so let's have a look at the attackers that are predicted to get the most points in FPL Game Week 7. Those are Erling Haaland, Gyökeres, Ollie Watkins, Walter Sesko completing the top 5, followed by Ivan Nilsson, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Mateta, João Pedro, and Alexander Isak completing the top 10. But there are 2 attackers that I want to talk about in particular, and those are Walter and João Pedro to an extent. Let's start with Walter. First 3 games in the Premier League, adjusting to a new country. He's got 2 goals in 3 games. We know how good that Newcastle attack has been in the past. They probably haven't hit the same heights this season, but obviously a lot of circumstances have gone into it. For example, the Anthony Gordon red card against Liverpool hasn't helped. Having him suspended for 3 games wasn't great, obviously, for Newcastle. Of course, Anthony Elanga is still adjusting to, let's say, Newcastle as a team. But Walter has done relatively well. Of course, the only problem has been early subs. In 2 of the 3 games, he's obviously come off early. Against Bournemouth, he came off in the 83rd minute. But again, that might have been a bit more game state dependent considering the fact that they were chasing to get a goal. His data hasn't been horrible. But more importantly, it's the fixtures that Newcastle have coming up. Nottingham Forest at home in Game Week 7 is a brilliant fixture considering Nottingham Forest under Ange now a bit more open defensively. After that, they have Brighton, Fulham, West Ham, Brentford. That is a nice run for Walter and Newcastle to potentially go on. And considering the fact that Wiss is out, considering the fact that, let's say, besides Erling Haaland, a lot of people have maybe struggled with the third or second or third forward options, especially on a wildcard, for example, that people done on wildcard 6. It could be a decent option to that Newcastle attack, and getting in early could be very key. His ownership is only at 3.6%. Now, I wanted to compare this to João Pedro because João Pedro is obviously a very popular FPL asset. His ownership is 66.6%, which is ridiculous. But the last 2 games, João Pedro actually hasn't even had a shot for Chelsea. Of course, a lot of that is game state dependent with obviously Chelsea getting 2 red cards in 2 games back to back is obviously very, very unfortunate for them. But that is just something that you might want to keep an eye on, especially considering the fact we know João Pedro's minutes are also going to be managed in the coming weeks with Champions League starting again. Obviously, João Pedro, he will probably get some early subs. Also, the fact that he's probably going to go off to Brazil during that Game Week 7, Game Week 8 period. He's probably going to be back late for the coming back from the international break because the players from Brazil always are. So, is there a potential, let's say, benching possibility in Game Week 8 after he's back from the international break? We know is always likely that could happen. So that is just something that we should keep an eye on with João Pedro. But I still think he's a very good FPL asset. But it's just something that we should keep an eye on, like I always say, because it's better to plan ahead. But before we end the video, make sure you guys like the video, comment your thoughts on the best place to buy for FPL Game Week 7, and subscribe to the channel.